Hey King, thanks for clicking on the video. I'm Cody B, and on today's episode of Chronicles of the Lolcows, I want to take a look at a video that the fake King of Akron, aka Cyrax, aka Chance Wilkins, produced as court evidence to be used against the real King of Akron, aka the now deceased music biz Marty, aka Nicholas C. Beegler. I want to do a little bit more than just show it to you though. I'm going to go ahead and perform a legal analysis of the case that Cyrax produced against music biz Marty and see if it truly has any legs to stand on in a legal sense. Now, you may be wondering, who are you to perform a legal analysis of anything, let alone the very serious and intricate case that Cyrax brings against music biz Marty? Well, I'll have you know that I took an American law class my sophomore year in high school, and I passed it with a B-, so I think I'm more than qualified to take a look at this case and give thoughtful, accurate legal counsel on the matter. In fact, I may be the most qualified person to be involved in this case, even though my involvement is from the outside looking in. Let's jump right into the case here. So from my understanding, the court case in question that Cyrax produced evidence for is between music biz Marty and another character in the Raxiverse known as CIA Hole. I believe it is in regards to a protection order. CIA wants an order from the court to tell music biz Marty to quit being a big old meanie head to him, his friends, and his family. Cyrax thought it pertinent to add his own 2 cents into the proceedings, thus giving us the video that we will take our first look at here.
Hello, this video is for not only my friend's lawyer, but also for the judge to see. So, to my friend's lawyer that is helping out with the Nicholas C. Beegler case, if you could please show this to the judge, that would be huge. To the judge, if you do see this, hi. My name is Chance Wilkins. I am 34 years old, out of Akron, Ohio. And I am a victim of this individual, Nicholas C. Beegler, of over 8 years. Now, I'm very aware of the current standings of what's going on. I understand that you guys are going after him for, different stuff, but I'm hoping that you'll hear me out, because some of the money that he has been storing away has been made off of my back and actually was made from me and off of what I do for work, which is content creation.
Okay, so right off the bat, we have a few problems. The first and biggest one, Cyrax even states himself, saying, and I quote, I understand that you guys are going after him for, different stuff, but I'm hoping that you'll hear me out. No, Cyrax, they actually won't hear you out, because they're going after him for different stuff. It turns out that court cases are really specific on what is being discussed, and it is entirely by design. You can't actually add charges into a case at a certain point. There's an entire phase of the process for figuring out what the charges are going to be. So quite literally, after that point, anything that does not pertain directly to the current case is null and void, and if you want to charge someone with something else, you will need to create a new court case. For example, let's say we have a case for someone who has a DUI. The prosecution can't come in front of the judge and say, oh hey, by the way, we have some CCTV footage of the defendant shoplifting, so let's add that onto the charges as well. It's just simply not how it works. That would need to have already been in the case by the time it gets in front of a judge. So Cyrax attempting to hijack this case from his buddy old pal CIA Hole, it's not only stupid, but it's also very scummy, because CIA Hole is the one who put in all the effort and money to get the case to this point, just to have the attic goblin try to wiggle his way into the case as well. Shame on him. I honestly could just end the video right here, because the question has been answered. No, the case that Cyrax brings against music biz Marty, aka Nicholas Beegler, ripped to him, has no legal legs to stand on, but don't worry, we're going to keep going and see what else Snaggletooth has to say and see if there's any angle he could take if he was presenting his case properly.
And for the past 8 years, this individual has committed very illegal crimes against me personally and my family and even my friends. If possible, I would like to add to the charges if possible. Some of the things that this man has done includes illegal entrapment, where he hired a grown woman to pretend to be an of-age female and then had her pretend to be underage after she had tricked me into thinking that she was of age, and basically tried to make me look like a pedophile so that he could then isolate me from my friends and use me and extort me. This individual has been extorting me for over 8 years now. And he hasn't just been extorting me for money. This person has stolen music from me that I personally created. This person has falsely reported me many times to various social media websites.
Let's make a list of this first chunk of crimes that Cyraxx is accusing the formerly alive Music Biz Marty of allegedly committing. We will categorize them as very illegal crimes and not so illegal crimes, starting with illegal entrapment, as the Goblin calls it. Regular functioning members of society just refer to it as entrapment because there isn't a legal entrapment. The situation that Cyraxx very poorly describes in his testimony here is one that you are likely very familiar with if you are watching this video. The short and sweet is that Cyraxx was caught in a sting operation conducted by a YouTuber known as Mass Troll Mafia without any supervision or guidance from any law authority. There is overwhelming and clear evidence of Cyraxx speaking in an inappropriate manner and sending illicit photos to what he believed was a 14-year-old girl. However, the Goblin attempts to put a spin on the situation, saying that he was told the minor in question was 18, but only after he sent the illicit photos did they pull the rug out from under him and say that she was 14. Cyraxx is being dishonest with his account of the situation. The decoy stated the age multiple times, and Cyraxx still fell headfirst into the bear trap. Even if the events played out exactly as Cyraxx described, this would still fall under the not so illegal crime section, since running a predator sting operation on its own is not illegal. In fact, it is so not illegal that the only reason that Cyraxx didn't spend time in prison for this is because the state of Ohio where Cyraxx resides requires law enforcement to be involved in the process of a sting operation to legitimize it, basically. So since no law enforcement was involved with Mass Troll Mafia, no one could pursue Cyraxx for the crime that he definitely committed. Extortion is next on the list of offenses. Now, extortion is very much illegal, and it may actually fit a little bit here. I'm just going to completely ignore what he said about Marty extorting him for money, because as far as I know, Marty has never taken money from Cyraxx. He's only made money off of creating his own content of the Goblin, so by definition, not extortion. Even if Marty was the spark that made Cyraxx do something that Marty turned into content at a later point, it still is not extortion. However, Marty has in the past, back when he could still breathe, made demands of Cyraxx to perform certain actions or else, such as the many times he demanded that Cyraxx dance for him. Some of these situations could be a bit morally questionable, such as the time that he gave Cyraxx the ultimatum to dance for him or he was going to release the docs of one of Cyraxx's friends that Marty had acquired. This could loosely be interpreted as extortion due to the desired action, in this case dancing, being demanded under the threat of something bad happening, the docs being released. However, it does fall short of being illegal due to the fact that there is no demand for property, such as money or any other valuable item. Extortion isn't limited to just property. There are physical acts that would make this a very illegal crime, but in that case, the extortion charge would likely be dropped to pursue a much more substantial charge. Dancing, however, doesn't really fall under one of those physical acts as far as I'm aware at least, so I'm going to kind of put this one in the middle. You could make the argument that there was some extortion going on, but definitely not enough to pursue any legal action. The stolen music is a not so illegal crime because Marty didn't do this. This was a different troll, William Gloryhole, who also didn't even steal the music. He just copyrighted it before Cyraxx did, so no crime here. Also, reporting someone, even falsely, to social media platforms is a not so illegal crime. At worst, it is against the terms of service of whatever social media platform you're on.
This person has also tried to have me killed. This person has committed attempted murder by having somebody go onto my neighbor's roof right over here, which is only not even 10 feet away. I was doing a live stream and he had hired somebody to try to kill me. They shot at me through my bedroom window, missed me, and the bullet actually went into my mattress. And thankfully, I'm still here. The police never did anything about it. The bullet is still lodged in my bed.
Whoa, Cyraxx, you should have led with that one. What you're claiming Marty did here is wildly illegal. You might actually get the attention of the judge with that one. However, there is a reason that the police never did anything about this. The claim that Cyraxx makes here does not stand up to scrutiny whatsoever. Here is the footage of the event that Cyraxx is describing.
Never even met. What the fuck was that?
I know y'all heard that. Nothing there, guys. Windows intact. Windows in one fucking piece. You happy? Windows in one fucking piece. I just checked. There ain't a goddamn bullet hole. There ain't a scratch. There ain't nothing.
Well, I'm sure Cyraxx wouldn't want us to see that. I mean, by his own assessment at the time of the alleged shooting, he determined that there was no bullet hole and that the window was, I quote, intact. He does present some evidence later on of a hole in the windowsill and his mattress, but it's not convincing because if you know anything about ballistics, the hole that Cyraxx shows is very clearly not caused by a bullet. In fact, it is much more likely that the hole in the mattress, at least, is caused by a mouse or other similar vermin, perhaps even caused by Cyraxx himself to goon into, who knows. What would be incredibly convincing, however, is digging the bullet out of the mattress, but Cyraxx to this date has been entirely unable to provide this evidence, so this is going to get marked down as a not-so-illegal crime due to lack of evidence.
This person has even threatened to bomb my house with Molotov cocktail bombs. This person has also hired people to drop paint, like big jars of paint, onto my house via drones.
Okay, so the Goblin may have something to work with here for these claims, but not a lot to work with, of course. As far as the threats go, it's actually illegal to threaten someone in this manner. I would say that threatening to throw Molotovs at someone's house is fairly extreme. However, the likelihood of Music Biz Marty receiving a charge for this is very low, due to the fact that it is incredibly unlikely that he would be able to carry out this threat. Marty lived in the state of Illinois before his passing, whereas Cyraxx lives in Ohio, thus turning this into a not very credible threat. However, Cyraxx's legal team could try to play the angle that Marty was capable of potentially orchestrating this Molotov attack due to the paint cans being dropped. Now, they do have to have the burden of proof to prove that Music Biz Marty was actually responsible for hiring the drone operator to drop the paint. That would prove incredibly difficult, however, because unless there was concrete proof that the drone operator was working directly under the direction of Marty, his defense would just say that the drone operator was operating under his own free will, thus had nothing to do with Marty, so not so illegal crime. Like I said, this claim may have a bit of teeth to it, but it would be very difficult if not impossible to prove, but in a perfect scenario for Cyraxx, Marty could be looking at about 9 months in jail and or a fine of some sort, depending on jurisdictions, but that is the maximum sentence.
This person has showed up to my house multiple times. He has attacked my friends, attacked my family, ruined my reputation. At one point, I was a paid live streamer on Twitch, and I was working on making Twitch my actual job. I was making $150 a day on Twitch when he had me falsely reported for stuff that I was not doing. And as a result of that, I lost my job with Twitch. I lost all my sponsorships that I had with them at the time. I lost my account. I lost a lot because of this individual. Because of this individual, I now live with very, very mild but still very effective and very active PTSD.
Jesus Christ, what is that background noise? It almost sounds like he's recording from the inside of a terrible Atari game or something. But to address the content of what he is saying, like we mentioned earlier, quote-unquote false reporting someone to social media isn't illegal. But also, the fact that Cyraxx's account was removed by Twitch indicates that he did in fact deserve to lose his account. All reporting someone on social media does is let that social media platform know that you think the person you're reporting is doing something wrong. The platform will then take a look and see if there is a problem. If there is no problem, no further action takes place. However, if they do find something, they will then take actions such as a ban, either temporary or permanent. So the fact that Cyraxx got permanently banned after a report from Marty proves that Cyraxx was in fact breaking the rules of the platform, meaning that Marty didn't submit a false report. So even if it was illegal to false report someone, Marty still wouldn't have committed the crime.
Because of this person, because of Nick, I actually ended up in jail last year because he sent somebody over to my house that was harassing me and my family, and they kept going on and off our property, and they put my family in danger, and I wrongfully got arrested for that. And the initial charges I got arrested for was simple assault. And, thankfully the charges got dropped.
So Cyraxx is doing a bit of lying by omission here. Cyraxx didn't get wrongfully arrested in this situation. He was arrested due to him swinging a baseball bat at a man who was protesting in the front of the Goblin Den, letting his neighbors know that Cyraxx is a PDF. Turns out, assaulting someone with what can be considered as a deadly weapon is a very illegal crime. I actually do have a video on my channel that goes into a bit more detail on this event if you're interested, link below. But I do want to clear up some of the blatant lies that the Goblin spews in this video. Marty did not send this person to protest at Cyraxx's house. In fact, Marty was incredibly angry with the guy because there was a good chance that Cyraxx was going to spend a few months in jail over this, which would have led to Marty not being able to make content about him for a while. This ultimately didn't come to pass, as Cyraxx says the charges did get dropped, but this wasn't because the court was like, you know what, this guy was just trying to defend his family, so we should just let him go. No, it was because the guy that Cyraxx did assault just didn't follow up with the courts, so the case got dropped due to a technicality, not because Cyraxx wasn't guilty.
The police here have refused to do anything about this individual. They've constantly told me to get off the internet, and my answer to that has always been, why should I have to get off the internet when this person is the one doing the bullying? Why should I be made to get off the internet when I'm the one being bullied, when I'm the one being harassed?
There's a very simple reason that you were told that you should get off of the internet, Cyraxx, and that is because all of the quote-unquote bullying and harassment will stop eventually, at least. Truly all Cyraxx or any other lolcow that finds himself in a similar situation needs to do is stop posting themselves on the internet, and they will ultimately fade from memory. Now, Cyraxx is incredibly infamous, so it will take longer for people to leave Cyraxx alone if he theoretically quit the internet for good, but it would happen eventually. The reason Cyraxx continues to suffer from the trolls is entirely because he can't leave the internet alone. He could even still use the internet just to watch stuff and do things like lurk, basically. But he won't do that because he's entirely too stubborn. He needs to post himself on the internet to make no money, but tell Sally and Ed that he is working so hard to provide. I am truly glad that he won't leave because Cyraxx is a predator, and these individuals shouldn't be left to their own devices without trolls keeping an eye on them at the very least, since for whatever reason these predator lolcows always seem to manage to avoid the prison cell that they deserve.
This person has not only affected my professional life as a music artist, as a content creator on YouTube, but this person has also affected my personal life to where me and my family have gotten into multiple fights to where I've almost been thrown out. Because of this person, I've lost a lot of friends. A lot of family members have walked away from me. Some of my immediate family won't even talk to me anymore. Because of this individual, my own adoptive dad, who helped to raise me, disowned me last year. As a result. But more importantly, this person has cost me an honest living doing what I love, which is creating content, creating music. Because this person thinks that I'm delusional. This person has cost me well over $1 million in earnings, in wages.
What brilliant comedic timing. Cyraxx states that Marty thinks he is delusional, which is obviously ridiculous. And then the very next thing he says is that Marty has costed Cyraxx millions of dollars in lost revenue. He goes on to mention again that Marty has gotten multiple of Cyraxx's channels shut down, so that's preventing him from making those millions. That is weapons grade delusion. I'm going to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on how you make money on YouTube, since I'm fortunate enough, thanks to all of my lovely viewers and subscribers, to operate a channel that has crossed the threshold to become monetized. Purely from YouTube, not including any sponsorships, you make money through channel members and AdSense. Channel members are very simple. An individual gives you a bit of money directly and they get a few perks. For AdSense, however, you make a small amount of money every time an ad plays when someone clicks on and watches your video. Now, I don't know the exact amount you make per ad play, but it can add up fairly quickly. For instance, the best performing video I have posted since I earned monetization is, funnily enough, a video about Cyrax and how he poops himself a lot. Since it was uploaded at the time of me writing this, it has amassed 25,606 views, which has equated to $132.77. Now, that is a lot of money, and I'm incredibly grateful to everyone who has watched that video. But let me tell you, that is a far cry from $1 million. Even if every single video I uploaded made that much money, it still wouldn't be close to $1 million. So the fact that Cyrax believes that he is missing out on multiple millions because a few of his channels managed to reach 1K subs a few times is laughable. I could be wrong about this, but I don't even think that Cyrax himself has any one upload that he has posted on his own channel that has even reached 1,000 views. So if I had to estimate, if Cyrax had been able to operate on one channel across the entire time he has been a lolcow, at most he would have made like a few $100 over the course of about 8 years or so.
And I honestly feel like that he should have to pay back some of, if not all of, the money that I should have been making this whole time.
Well, it turns out there is a legal route to potentially getting that to happen. Cyrax would need to sue Marty in civil court for damages caused by his trolling. However, as we discussed earlier in the video, Cyrax getting his channels deleted is entirely his fault due to misbehaving on the platforms. And Cyrax also seems to have a fondness for deleting his own channels at random, so Marty wouldn't be responsible for these damages that Cyrax has suffered. And even if he was, there is still no real way to establish an amount of money that Cyrax has missed out on, so this case would just get thrown out. Plus, keep in mind you can't prosecute someone criminally and sue them civilly in the same court case. Those are separate cases, so Cyrax is wasting our hypothetical judge's time by talking about this in his evidence video.
And I will admit, I have done some very underhanded things that are very less than legal to try and shut him down and to stop him. But the only reason why I did those things was because the police here refused to help me. They let my family defend for ourselves. They left me and my family defend for ourselves and blatantly refused to do anything to help. And I'm not proud of those things that I did. But Your Honor, I ask you this. When your family is left alone to fend for themselves when no one else will help, what do they expect to happen when you get pushed too far and you get pushed to the limit and you get pushed past your breaking point?
You know, for a guy who is constantly lying about pretty much everything, even about stuff that he brings up in this very evidence video, it's mind-boggling that the one thing he decides to be honest about is the fact that he has committed several crimes in his efforts to get Marty banned. The main crime in question is exposing himself on Marty's streams in an attempt to get him banned. This has never really worked for Cyrax, and it's kind of crazy that he has never faced any legal repercussions for this, other than the police just pretty much telling him to knock it off. I shouldn't really have to tell you why it's a bad idea to go in front of a judge and openly say that you've committed a whole bunch of crimes. At the very best, it'll make the judge much less sympathetic to your cause, Cyrax, even if you were, quote-unquote, pushed into a corner, as you say.
8 years of my life has been spent defending myself, living in fear. Anytime anyone defends me, they go after them and they target them. They make them a target. They dox their personal information online, threaten to put out their information, threaten to call their jobs.
That's right, boy. Pick that backstab in the middle of your statement to the judge. But this will be the last point that Cyraxx makes that could have any legal implication. He just repeats himself and then thanks the judge in the last bit of the video. But doxing actually is not illegal in most cases. There aren't any specific laws forbidding it. I mean, that's why sites like Kiwi Farms can stay up, because they aren't actually really breaking any laws. Now, there is a little bit of a gray area. If a dox leads to anything bad happening, I believe the doxer can be held liable in theory, but this would be almost impossible to prove that an event took place specifically due to the dox. So yeah, ultimately, in my professional opinion, as someone who took one American law class in high school, the case that Cyraxx brings against Music Biz Marty is incredibly weak and would be a massive waste of everyone's time if it was ever pursued. Well, actually, it could never be pursued, because as I made very clear throughout this video, the man that Cyraxx accuses of all these wrongdoings has actually passed away. Music Biz Marty, real name Nicholas Beegler, passed away on January 29th of 2025. In fact, the day that Cyraxx produced this evidence video was actually the day of Nicholas's funeral service, February 5th of 2025. I, of course, didn't know Music Biz Marty personally, but I will say that he was one of the greatest trolls of all time. No one could get Cyraxx riled up the way he could, and I truly hope he rests easy knowing that he would have absolutely wiped the floor with Cyraxx in the courtroom, even if this entire case wasn't completely fabricated for the sole purpose of messing with the goblin. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a blessed day, and peace out.